glass up high. Turn it up, it's time. Tall boy on the line. Loud breeze, they will last. Raise your glass up high.
Welcome back to episode 301 of the Tall Boy Radio podcast. And as we always say, who knows where it goes when the beer flows? Well, we are doing another episode tonight where we have a guest on who was a member of the law enforcement in the US of A. We know you like those episodes, and I love those episodes too. There's no guest tonight, I'm afraid, as we're recording on a Thursday, and he plays his darts that night. So it's just me, but I'm sure we can make do. And I just want to say a special thank you to anybody who's listening in Lithuania, our 81st country to listen into the podcast. So thank you very much. Now, like I said, we have a very special guest tonight. He has his own podcast. He had a very interesting career, which he's going to be sharing with us tonight. And he's also written a book about it. So, Bert, did you want to say hello and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, greetings, everyone, and thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. My name's Bert Gonzalez. I'm a retired sergeant from the Miami-Dade Police Department, Miami, Florida, where I spent 37 years patrolling the streets and, doing the wild thing, as we call it. Based on the experiences that I've had, I wrote a book about policing in America, really policing in any Western civilized country, as I like to say, because we're all basically the same. So the book is it's a unfiltered expose on police work with all the things that people wanted to know about police work but were afraid to ask. The good, the bad, and the ugly. So I did that, and like you, I'm a father, I'm a grandfather, married to my wife Rosie, and now enjoying retirement in Miami, and just doing all the things that we want to do, the things we work so hard for to get to.
Yeah, yeah. And that's interesting as well, because we were talking a little bit there just before we got started, and it is a very hard and a very dangerous career at times. And we'll touch on some of those dangers and some of the things that you faced during your career, and some of the things that your colleagues faced as well, as you were just telling me that story there at the start. We'll definitely get into that. But first of all, I've got to ask, Sergeant Maverick, where does this name come from?
Yeah, I get that question all the time. So I started my career in 1983. And in 1987, going into 88, like many others, sometimes we don't always get along with our supervisors or each other. And I was having some particular difficulties with this one supervisor, a lieutenant. I was an officer. And I was just the one of many on his hit parade. The thing about police work is that when a supervisor takes a personal interest in somebody, they make them a project, and it could be hell going to work at times. Nothing to do with the street. Most of our stress is internal, like it is in many places, but especially in police work. So I was eventually transferred from Station 5, our Southwest District, to Station 3, our Midwest District, in March of 1988, after all this conflict with this guy. I landed on the Midnight Training Squad, which were known as the Black Sheep, just like from the television show from the 70s and the famed Marine Corps fighter squadron during World War II, the Black Sheep. Yeah. The sergeant was called Pappy, like Pappy Boyington, but everyone on the squad had a nickname from the movie Top Gun, which was 2 years earlier. And you didn't pick your own name. The squad gave you your name, and everybody's name was based on their personality. So it wasn't arbitrary. They just throw a name out and you're it. And the squad said to me after a day or two, they go, well, you were in some trouble at Station 5 and you come with you come with a reputation of doing things your way. You're Maverick. and it stuck. So from 88 to 98, I was known as Officer Maverick, and then I got promoted, and after that it was Sergeant Maverick. And it has stuck, and everybody knows me that way. And my son on the job, he's a sergeant in his own right now on the job. And when he runs into guys that knew me from my generation, oh, you're Maverick's kid. So, and then it became kind of like my alter ego, like you guys have yours, and it's Sergeant Maverick Enterprises, my company, and Sergeant Maverick, the podcast, and then my new website, sergeantmaverick.com. So a lot, and I still have close friends that I talk to, and those are the names that we call each other still to this day, right? It was 1988. So that's where the story comes from. I wish I could fly like they did. I wish I had Tom Cruise's money.
Don't we all?
But I'll settle for the nickname because it's worked out for me and it's fun. We don't take ourselves too seriously.
No.
So
I got to tell you, if you're gonna have a nickname that sticks, that ain't a bad one to have. I know people with a lot worse nicknames than that. I don't mind telling you.
we had a rookie officer that came on at that time, and he was, for lack of a better term, a pretty boy. And he was enthralled with the name, and he started calling himself that, right? That he was going to be Maverick. And all the other guys told him, no, there's only one, and that's Bert.
There's always one. There is always one, isn't there? Bless him.
Yep.
So tell us then a little bit about your career there. So which sort of departments were you based in throughout your career?
So my department at the time was called the Metro Dade Police Department. It's really the sheriff of Dade County. We just called ourselves Metro Dade because back in '58, when it was the sheriff's office, the Dade County Sheriff's Office, that goes back to 1825. And in '58, the Dade County politicians, the commission, petitioned Tallahassee, our state capital, to do what's called the Home Rule Charter. They wanted to govern themselves. So Dade County, which is now Miami-Dade County, South Florida, is pretty much different than the rest of the state. And we have a saying here: the further you go south in Florida, the more north you get, because we have transplants from all over the Northeast. And I was born here, but I grew up in New York, just in the city and then a little north of New York City. So a lot of us are transplants. So that's where the saying comes from, because this is very metropolitan compared to the rest of the state. A lot of the state is rural, except for, Orlando with Disney World and Universal Studios, Tampa, Jacksonville. Tallahassee is still kind of rural, even though it's our capital. It's not a big city. But the Southeast coast, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach, it's pretty much the same, with us having the largest population. So in 1958, when Tallahassee granted the Home Rule Charter, my department became the Public Safety Department under the control of the Dade County Commission. And instead of having an elected sheriff, we had an appointed director, just like a city would appoint a chief of police. The mayor would appoint him. This way, the commission can control the head of the police agency.
Yeah. And
so we had a director that answered to the commission, and then later on, when the mayor became a strong mayor, answered to the mayor. In 1997, thereabouts, we changed our name from Metro Dade. In 1980, it went from Public Safety Department to Metro Dade Police, and that's how we became known nationally and internationally. Mm-hmm. And of course, that was the time of the cocaine cowboys.
Yeah.
And then in '97, our mayor was at a conference, county mayor's conference somewhere in the country. And they said, well, where are you the mayor from? Dade County. They go, where's that? Nobody knew where Dade County was. He goes, it's Miami. Oh, Miami. So for tourism's sake and business sake, we changed the name of the county to Miami-Dade, because if I say to you, it doesn't matter where I am in the world. If I say Miami, everybody knows where it's at.
Yeah.
So I get that. I understand that. But we at the police and fire always liked our name Metro Dade. And now for the first time since 1958, at this last November election, we have an elected sheriff once again. And the sheriff is Rosie Cordero Stutz, who was an assistant director with us. And I saw her come up since she was a rookie.
Cool.
So she's the chief, probably most powerful person in Miami-Dade County now as the sheriff. Florida is a sheriff state, 67 counties. And the sheriff is the most powerful individual in each county. The commission still has to give the sheriff the budget, right?
Yeah.
But now she gets to decide what to do with that budget, as opposed to the commission and the mayor saying, well, you can only buy 50 new patrol cars instead of 100, right?
Yeah.
Or we always cross into politics, so I'll say it. You're going to have a DEI program. Okay. Things like that. And it makes for a hard time. So now, just like all the other sheriffs in the state, she's in charge. She can do with the budget what she wants. She wants to make another special response team. That's what we call our SWAT. She wants to buy 100 more cars. She wants to make more units. You know, whatever. She's totally in control. So that's how that went. So I started in 1983, and that was like I mentioned, that was the time of the cocaine cowboys. And because of the 1980 riots here, where colleagues in my department going back further than me killed a black motorcyclist and were acquitted at trial. His name was McDuffie. After the acquittal, we had the 1980 riots. And then in May of that year, we had the Mariel boat lift. And Dade County was exploding. So we had to hire a lot of cops. And the city of Miami police, we're the county sheriff, even though we didn't call ourselves that. And then you have the proper city of Miami itself. So in Miami-Dade County, we've got 36 police departments. Us, the county sheriff, and all the smaller municipalities inside. City of Miami being the largest municipality. They had to go on a hiring spree just like we did, because we were overwhelmed. And I got hired in 7 months' time, which is really fast. And then 2 years later, when my brother got out of the Army, he got hired in 6 months.
Wow.
And they needed a lot of Spanish-speaking officers because it just exploded here. So we had not only the population explosion, we had all the drugs that came in. Yeah. And all the violence that came along with that.
Yeah. I mean, those sort of times are pretty well documented, aren't they? What was it like to experience it firsthand? The cocaine cowboys, as it were. And
let me turn this light off here. Is that a little better for you?
yeah, I mean, it's fine. It's all
Okay.
good. Don't worry about it. Yeah, don't worry about it.
I had a desk light on here. So let me start off by saying that the mid 80s, that time when I came on, was a great time to be a cop. You learned so much so fast. It was nonstop all the time. The district I worked, Southwest District, was actually the busiest district in the county, but it wasn't the most violent per se, but it did have most of the dopers living in it. So the houses, Southwest District had a lot of open space in it where the dopers could build their big houses. And everybody knew when a big house went up in an area where there wasn't any big houses, oh, that's a doper. And of course, they had all the cameras up on the property. Once again, that's a doper. And it was great. We were busy, but it was also a very violent time. I got to say that I loved coming up in that time. And here's something that's going to throw some people off. We were finding dead bodies every single day without fail. every single day, another one, another one, another one. So as an officer, you get a case, you get a call, maybe of a dead body or somebody, even someone in medical distress that ends up dying. Fire rescue can't save them. They didn't transport them. We found them already deceased. They woke, like my brother did 23 of his 30 years in our crime scene unit. And the saying he likes to use for a natural death, somebody that died in their sleep. Yeah, he woke up dead. Our humor, as I'm sure
Yes.
gallows humor, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But it would be, let me get my sergeant on the radio. Sergeant, I got another one. Sergeant, I got another one. Sergeant, I got another one. And our homicide unit was stretched so thin that they ended up creating a special homicide unit called CENTAC 26 just to handle the drug-related homicides. Wow. City of Miami had their version of that also. And those guys never went home. If you work our homicide unit, especially at that time, and I have some very close friends that did, they'll say they loved it, but they didn't spend a whole lot of time at home. You had to bring a razor, you had to change of clothes, because you're done. You get a case, you're done. You're not going home. And that's the way it was most of the time, and as a uniform officer, if you get that case where now the whole world's going to come and investigate, you're not going home either. That's your case until the end. And, let's say I work 3 to 11 P. And I got that case at 6 p.m. Well, maybe tomorrow morning by 6 o'clock, I'm going home, and that's the way it was for all of us. I'm not complaining. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And the afternoon shift was always my favorite shift because it was the busiest. And one call to the next, to the next, to the next, no time to catch your breath, or very little. But that's the way we liked it. And then we're young and stupid. We don't know any better, right? And then you say, I can't believe I'm getting paid for this.
Yeah.
So
interestingly enough, whenever we have police officers on this podcast, they've all done a lot of years. Every single one of you, like you say, has that gallows humor, that very dark sense of humor, and is incredibly well adjusted for the things that they must have seen and experienced in their life. And every single one of them, like yourself, tells us how much they love the job. What was it about the job that made you love it so much?
All right. So my journey in 1982, I applied to Metro Police and Metro Fire. So I was going to do one of the two. When I first brought up the idea of becoming a Metro Dade cop, my first wife, that's another story. I'm on number 3, which is typical for us.
So I believe.
Yeah. And I have a chapter just on police and relationships because of it in my book. But when I first brought it up, she said, no, I'll divorce you if you become a cop. All right. So I put it off for a little while. And then the draw was really strong, the pull. And I said, you know what? Divorce me, because this is what I'm going to do. So in January of '83, I had my final interview with the fire department, Metro Dade Fire. And the recruiting division chief said, you're hired. Next fire college class, you're going in. Great, super, right? I was working at a small credit and collections company going nowhere. We'll get into what I really wanted to do at some point, and I think you'll appreciate it.
Cool.
But 2 weeks later, my background investigator for the police called me. He goes, you're starting the academy February 8th, 1983. And I said, that's it, because I wanted to be a cop more than I wanted to be a firefighter. And that's how I started. And, like every cop, you go through the academy, all the ups and downs of that, the hard training, the classroom, the learning how to, shoot a firearm, which I didn't before. I'm not a hunter. My brother's a hunter. He can shoot any gun that you give him. He was in the Army for 4 years. He was a military policeman, and he's an avid hunter to this day. Not me. My firearm was a tool for my work. I did martial arts and I boxed, so I'd rather hit you than shoot you because I get more pleasure out of that.
A lot of people feel that way about me.
Yeah. But that's how it came to be. So you get on the road. In your first 3.5 months, you're with a field training officer. So everything you learn in the academy now you got to put into application, right? Now, I became a field training officer 2 different cycles later on, and a field training supervisor when I was a sergeant. Almost every field training officer tells his or her rookie this: forget everything you learn in the academy. I'm going to teach you the right way to do it. I never said that. I don't agree with that. Because the academy, of course, gives you the foundation, all those things you had to learn, like law, right?
Yeah.
You know, like in the Tom Cruise movie, A Few Good Men. Oh, you were absent the day they taught law at law school, right? You got to learn these things. And then you got to learn how to apply it to the street. And that's where your FTO comes in. So you go through your 3.5 months of training with your FTO, and you're in the car for the first time, and you have the talk. Every FTO has the talk with their rookie. This is what we're going to do. This is what I expect from you. If this happens, you're going to do this. If that happens, you're going to do that. And I'm going to teach you all the different things you need to do. So that's 3.5 months of training. If you pass each phase, you can be recycled if you don't pass a phase. But you're out there, and my first shift was 2 to 10, afternoon shift, which I just fell in love with the afternoon shift, like I said. You're busy, and you're going from call to call, and you're absorbing all this information, and you're having a great time doing it. And since you're new, your adrenaline is amped up all the time. You know, very rarely does it come down because you're just trying to absorb everything your FTO is telling you. And you're making mistakes and all that. You know, the first time you're talking on the police radio, even though you had training in the academy, it's not the same. You're talking to a real dispatcher now, right?
Yeah.
And the whole world is listening to you. Everybody in your district here's the. How do you handle colorful language on your podcast?
Absolutely fine.
Okay. And everybody hears the bullshit that you're saying on the radio, right? When you screw up, right? Like, he said, what did he say? You know, because you're nervous and you're learning and all that. But that's what happens, you know, just like in any new job. You gotta learn the ropes, and you're gonna make mistakes along the way. But just running, what I found running, especially running lights and sirens. 1 year later, I became a police driving instructor because driving is a passion of mine.
Yeah.
And I did a little race autocross driving when I was in my late teens with my own personal car. You take it to a track through cones and you go for time, and everybody has a good time, right? If I could drive Formula One now, trust me, I would. Right?
Yeah.
I'm a Max Verstappen fan.
Okay.
So you can't believe that you're getting paid to do this. The adrenaline dump is so hard and so high. And you're going from call to call. And then in the crazy calls, when you're going to arrest somebody that doesn't want to be arrested, you get into a fight. And like I told you, I like to fight, especially when I was young and in shape. Now I'm 64 and I hurt everywhere. But, you know, it's just so much fun because it's exciting and you're on the edge most of the time, right? When you're running lights and sirens, or you're in a fight with a guy, or, you know, maybe you have to do what we call a felony stop. Bad guys in a car, you take them out at gunpoint, you know, all that kind of stuff. We're going into a door, right? When you got to kick a door and you got to go in and you don't know what's on the other side of the door. It is frightening and exciting all at the same time, I got to tell you. You know, and I think most of us, you know, any of the other cops that you talk to would agree with that. So I was just having a blast. I didn't want to go home.
No.
Not that I had something great to go home to at the time, but, you know, because we were just at each other's throats all the time until I finally divorced her. Yeah.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it sounds to me then like no 2 days were the same. So thinking of those days, okay, think back to your first day, think back to your last day. How different a person were you, from that time period?
In many respects, I was different because now, when I retired 5 years ago, I was 58. So I did 37 years, and I'm older, I'm wiser, I'm more reserved. I'm not as gung ho as I was, although I still enjoyed the action all the way up until the end, and I still miss it at times. My filter is better, from here to here, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't so good back then because I just couldn't deal with bullshit, especially and weak supervisors and bullshit excuses and things. I had a hard time with it. That's why I got in trouble, because I spoke up. So I was kind of the martyr for a lot of the guys, pushing me forward to deal with the problems. My essence, I would say I'm still the same because I never lost sight of what the job was or my love for the job. A lot of guys, when they retire, they say, I'm going to miss the clowns, but not the circus. The clowns, they're referring to all of us, right?
Yeah.
But as I ended my book in my last chapter on retirement, because retirement for a cop or a firefighter or a career military is a big thing, right? Because your whole life is changing now. But as I ended that chapter, I said, I didn't agree with that saying. I said, I took the job because of the circus. And the circus is where I wanted to be. The more chaotic it was on the street, the more I enjoyed it. I know that sounds like pathological or, I loved handling the chaos on the street. No matter how crazy it got, I was in my element. I was, a competitive athlete. Same thing, and to this day, I do miss it. Although, when 58 rolled around, I realized, I'm really hurting here. I got a slightly herniated disc in my lower back. Everything hurts. My brain is still sharp as a tack, and I taught a lot. I was an instructor in quite a few disciplines, and I mentored a lot of officers and young sergeants. But it does change you in some respects. I am hardened because I had to be.
Yeah.
I have very little empathy for most things. I can't. I physically cannot do it. And here's an example that I use. And this is, of course, I don't mean to offend anybody by saying this. I just use this as an example. My father died at 56 when I was a rookie on the job, my first year on the job, cancer. My mother at 71. If someone has a relative that made it to 95, I'm not shedding a tear for you. Okay? I can't do it. I've seen too much death. I felt I was cheated that my father died so early because not until I moved out of the house did he and I get along better because we're so much alike. So I don't have a lot of empathy for that. I say, I'm sorry, I sympathize. You lost a loved one. I get that, of course.
Yeah.
When someone does what I call stupid human tricks and they get seriously hurt or they kill themselves because of that stupid human trick, I have no empathy or sympathy whatsoever. I physically can't because of everything that we've seen happen, in front of our eyes.
Yeah.
You do something really stupid. It's like, okay, all right. No. All right, let me get a cup of coffee. We got a report. We got a crime scene. We're going to be here for a while. Let me call my wife and say hi. I can't. I physically can't do it because the job hardens you, and you've got to build that wall, that defensive wall, because of the tragedy that we see, or you will go crazy.
No, and this is what I struggle to get my head around it as someone who's not experienced it. So like I say, when we've had officers like yourself on in the past, seem perfectly well adjusted. Yes, you've got that dark gallows humor, and we understand why. You like, so you've got to be tough, you've got to be hardened to it. If you're sensitive, you're not going to last minute one in that career. I get that, but I don't know how you can experience those things in life and see them and close your eyes at night and go to sleep. It blows my mind how you guys cope with it.
It depends what you see. All right, I'm a pretty tough son of a bitch, right? Physically and mentally. And I have a saying that I use, and my wife has adopted it also. What needs doing must get done.
Yeah.
So whatever it is, we got to do, right? If my sergeant gave me a mission to do, I got it done. When I was a sergeant and my lieutenant or captain or major gave me a mission to do, I got it done. That was my job, and I'm task oriented. All the stuff in between, I didn't deal with it in the same way that maybe some others did, right? You got to learn to compartmentalize.
Yeah.
Now, all the death that I've seen, all of us, and just not me. When I say I want Beans, I want you to insert we or us when I say I or me.
Yeah, I get
because we're all the same. Well, the cops are the same everywhere, and they see all the same different things. All the tragedy, all the funny, goofy stuff, and everything in between. I am well adjusted. I drink, but I don't drink a lot. I just do it to enjoy it. And I have my preferences. But there's others that needed that to get by. And then they became alcoholics. And then, we've had a lot of that on the job. Fortunately, in the last 30 years, we've made a lot of improvements. And there's a lot of psychological counseling and training and self-help for us, where early on, you didn't ask for help because you were ashamed or you felt embarrassed or whatever. But my department was one of the few in the country at the time to have a psychological services section. So police psychology is a big thing now.
Yeah.
We were one of the forerunners with it, and I had to go to it at one point because of the struggles I was having at firearms. And I finally told this story in the book because no one ever knew. I mentioned my father was sick. So the day after 2 weeks of firearms training, and the day on a Friday we were qualifying in the academy, my father was having a brain tumor removed. So my mind, of course, wasn't there, and I didn't qualify. 7 others didn't qualify either for other reasons, but I didn't qualify because of my father. Yeah. So on Monday, when the rest of the class rotated back to the academy itself, the 8 of us had to go back to firearms and try to qualify. Well, over the weekend, I found out my father was okay. I was able to go to the hospital and see him, and I came back on Monday and I qualified. The problem was that I didn't know was coming, that annually when we went to firearms training and I stood on that firing line, it brought me right back to where I was in the academy. And now I'm sweating. Yeah. And I'm not going to pass. I'm not going to pass. I'm not going to pass. And there was a time I didn't pass. And it got so bad, I was at the gym one time with one of our sergeants. She and I were working out next to each other. And I was so freaked out about going to qualification the next day, I threw up in the bathroom. Now, for 35 years, I kept that to myself, and I finally wrote about it in the book. And now I can talk about it, because it's embarrassing. Right. But no one ever made fun of me when they found out. they said they understood. But I did go to our psychological services unit to get help to get me past that.
Yeah.
So when I was standing on line, I wasn't sweating and nervous anymore.
Yeah.
I was a good tactical shooter. I could move and shoot just like in the movies, you see it, moving on. But standing at the target, a static target right there, I wasn't comfortable. Not for a long time.
No.
So go ahead. No, go ahead.
And I was just going to say, it's interesting you say that, though. But, I bet you there was just about every officer had a very similar experience to that. Maybe not with firearms, but, with that association, and they had struggles, and they kept it hidden probably to themselves, so that when you share that experience with them, it makes them feel a little bit more human as well.
2 years ago, I attended this training called Struggle Well. And one of my mentors, he's been retired now for a long time, but he's in it working for this company. And they bring officers in to teach them to learn how to struggle with their issues, right? That's why it's called Struggle Well. I was going to become an instructor with him with this, but I eventually saw how much time it was taking in his retirement. And I said, you know what? I don't want to spend this much time, and I don't feel like traveling that extensively. But in that class, in order to become an instructor, you've got to take the 40-hour course, right? And then you got to go through some training courses, which I did. But in that 40-hour, I was the only one from my department in retirement, but all the other guys were working. And I was the oldest. And when I told that story, later on, I had no less than 10 or 12 of the participants in the class come up to me and say, and they said it publicly also, what you were saying there allowed me to say what I needed to say, because they were embarrassed, right? Because that's what happens. Oh, he can't shoot. Well, he has to carry a gun. What do you mean he can't shoot? I could shoot. I just got in my head, for a time. And then the psych services helped me get through it. They gave me exercises. And then when I stood on the line, and one thing I did do, I drew faster than anybody else. I learned how to draw my weapon really fast, just like in a samurai fight. The one who draws first usually wins. And I took that to heart, and I learned how to draw my gun and manipulate it and handle it and walk with it, going into doors or alleyways and all that. And I was very comfortable doing that. But I made myself a promise. No one's going to outdraw me. I'm going to take them out first. And that helped me get through it. Other guys, we like the famed Police Academy movies.
Yeah.
Every class has its tackleberry, the gun nut, right?
Yeah.
And Jerry Davenport was ours. He grew up in Montana, shooting every kind of gun and shooting every kind of animal you can imagine. And at the range, he never missed. He never missed. And back in '83, we were using revolvers.
Wow. We
didn't transition to semi-autos until '89. So the bad guys still had all the automatic weapons, and we didn't. But Jerry, at that time, he would stand on line next to somebody who was having some struggles, and he would throw a couple into the target for the other guy. So the firearms instructors would say, "You missed 3. How did you do that?" Because he never missed, right? Oh, I don't know. I just missed. But we had to shoot a revolver from the 50-yard line back then. Wow. You know what the target looks like from the 50-yard line? It looks like your thumbnail, right? And you shoot at it, you can't even see if you hit the target. And then you move up closer to the 25, to 15, to 7, and to 3. But from the back, none of us, I can't even see. Perfect 20/20 vision.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of shooting on the range when I've been on holiday in the States, and like I say, I've visited my cousin in Texas, and we've taken some firearms out onto his range that he has there at the property, and yeah, I am a lousy shot. I'm going to tell you now, I am a lousy shot. So I take my hat off to you guys.
It's an acquired skill, and it's a diminishing skill, like most other things. But it's funny you mentioned Texas. Okay, so this is where I said about me being a competitive athlete that I think you'll like. I was a real football player, not American football,
Soccer.
football,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So soccer here in the States.
Yeah.
You there, when when you're born and you're a little boy, you get a soccer ball, right? You get a football.
Yeah.
You went to Texas, they get guns.
Yeah, true
So
story.
Texas, Wyoming, Montana, Florida. I have to include Florida, up north of us here, because Florida is very much a gun state. But Texas for sure, absolutely. They know how to shoot out there, and everybody's carrying a gun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That is true. That is true. So you mentioned like football, because that's what we call soccer over here in the UK.
right.
We call it football, and it makes a lot more sense because you use your foot a lot more than you do in.
I say that to. I'm an American, but I played football.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why American football is called football, because I don't see it. Right? They kick a couple of times, but they should just call it combat, because that's what it is.
Yeah. And I love it. Don't get me wrong. It's a sport I absolutely
yeah. It's a great sport to watch. My parents, and when I was 13, drove me to the field to sign up to play football, American football. And we pulled into the parking lot, and they'd heard all the nightmares of kids getting hurt and everything. And both of them at the same time said, nope. And they drove out, and that's how my soccer career started.
Cool. Did you come close to making it pro?
I would say, okay, I don't like to use stolen valor. Like I almost did this. Okay. So I was named best defensive player in New York State in 1979.
Cool.
I was a sweeper, and I was a backup keeper. So anytime I was on the field, especially in my senior year in high school, I was captain of the team for 2 years and MVP. So I was pretty good.
Yeah, it sounds like you were.
Defense. I took all the penalty kicks. I took all the free kicks because I had a very strong leg. I went to a small college that wasn't good at anything. I mean, nothing, right? And when I was 17 turning 18, I told my father, I want to go down to Fort Lauderdale and try out for the Strikers. And we wrote a letter to the coach. What's his name? He was a big announcer now, as of late. Ray Hudson.
Okay.
Ray Hudson. And he very politely wrote back and said, that's great. Go to college. We'll find you there. And that was the end of that. And my father wasn't going to let me go. So, I think I could have been a good defensive player in the professional level. No one ever got past me. And we played, most of us, English style football back then, right? It was more like rugby.
Yeah. It was a brutal sport back then.
Yeah, and of course you guys still play it that way. What I can't stand is the diving, the flops.
Yeah.
And I never allowed anybody on our team to do that.
No.
Get up. Okay? Unless it's broken, get up. All right? And you're going to stop and fall down and hope you get a whistle for what? If you keep fighting for the ball, maybe you have the advantage and can make something happen, right? So it drives me nuts.
The fans love the players who are going to go out there and stay on their feet and try it. Everybody hates the divers. Don't get me wrong; he'll win a free kick every now and then, win a penalty, and maybe he's going to win a game. But there's no way to win a game.
It isn't. But I also I see it as giving up.
Yeah.
And I can't stand that. So and I watched a lot of Premier League, because of that. Especially when I was a kid, we always watched Premier League, right? And at the time, we didn't have cable and all those, but the Premier League was being shown on TV. So we got to, get together, the teammates and stuff, and we would watch, Man U or Arsenal. I see, and I looked you guys up,
Yeah, yeah.
and I see that you're an Arsenal fan and a Steelers fan.
That's me. Yeah, that's me.
In 2000, one of the guys approached me and two other guys and said, let's start a department soccer team.
Cool.
And what we had here was the police Olympics, as we call it, the Florida law enforcement games, where agencies from all over the state would meet and compete against each other in various sports. So soccer was played like futsal on a basketball court.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the team that we put together. And then we played for like 7 years together. I played defense and I played keeper when we lost the keeper because, they're all cops. His shift changed, so he couldn't practice with us anymore. So I had to step in. And during practice, and you know how hard that little futsal ball is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Excuse me. The guys during practice would forget that I was on their team. So I wore a hockey helmet and I cut out an extra one of the braces here. So I had more vision because every once in a while one would slip through and, get me in the face mask because they rifle the ball and some of these guys could really kick. I played with this one guy who was a phenomenal player, strong leg, great striker. And when I played defense, I always looked for him. I was always trying to get him the ball because he was so good. But, that's my soccer story and I'm sticking to it,
No, fair play. Yeah, fair play. It's interesting because we don't hear about too many Americans with who are interested in playing the game. So it's great to hear. So the other thing I wanted to just take you back a little bit to what we were talking about earlier.
Sure.
You said you enjoy driving, and there's every single great cop movie or great cop TV show has a car chase in there. Now we know it can't be realistic. If you trash an entire block's worth of traffic by tearing around, then you got a lot of paperwork to do, and it no doubt wasn't worth it. But what was it? What was it like? I imagine you were involved in high speed chases. What was that like?
So in my time back then, it was a free for all. We chased for any reason at all. We try to stop a car, and we didn't even know it was involved in a crime yet, or if it was at all. So you stop a car for a traffic violation or a supposed traffic violation because that's what they did. They ran a red light or a stop sign or they're speeding, whatever the case is, and they take off on you. Okay, it's on. And then you give your unit number, dispatcher, chase, lights and sirens, and now everybody is coming to you to get in the chase. They could be running because they have a suspended license. They could be running because they have a warrant. They could be running because they just committed a crime that you don't know of yet, right? And back then, you had to tell the dispatcher what the tag was if you could see it, so she can run it. And I say she because almost all dispatchers are female. There's a lot of males now, but for us, it was predominantly female. To let you know if the tag was stolen or the car was stolen or something like that. So you didn't really know. But especially in the case of a crime, it's all out. It's all out. We're doing this. So running a chase is probably the most exciting and dangerous thing that you can do because there are so many variables involved in the chase. Balls to the wall, right? And especially if we get on the turnpike or when the expressway, where whatever he's doing, you're doing. And whatever your car will go, you've got it all the way pegged to the floor. And everybody's going to join in, and you have a caravanning effect because it's just like a sea of lights, red and blue lights, right? And we're chasing the rabbit, as we call it, and we're going to catch this rabbit almost no matter what. Now, what is really frightening is going through a toll plaza during a chase. So you have the toll plaza set up. It's got the lanes, right?
Yeah.
The toll plazas have these huge concrete abutments on front because even at normal speed, some people have their heads up their asses and they'll hit it. And you got to protect the attendant inside the booth.
Yeah.
So the attendants learned, and when they see the sea of lights coming, they're actually ducking down in their booth, okay? Because they know what could possibly happen. So the lanes are a good 10 to 12 feet wide. That's a lot of space.
Yeah. So
in the distance, you're traveling 100 miles an hour, right? And you see the lane. The lane is now doing this, right? And you're looking at it and going, oh shit, I got to go through this, right? And the car goes through, the rabbit goes through, right? And you're going through and you do this, right? You close your eyes and you open your eyes and boom, and you go, oh, I'm through. Okay, great. Nothing happened. And then think about the toll booth attendant. You've got boom, 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 one right after the other.
Jeepers.
It's a phenomenal feeling to be involved in that. I actually had my second wife worked for a psychiatrist. And we were out to dinner one night and he asked me that question. He goes, aren't you scared? I go, no, not really. Maybe just with the toll plaza thing, but no, I'm not. I am intent on catching the rabbit, right? We're the greyhounds. We're going to catch the rabbit. And at the end of the chase, only a couple of things happen. They're going to crash, which is usually, right? The bad guy's going to crash. We hope they don't crash into somebody innocent. And that's happened way too many times. And because of that, we adopted a very restrictive chase policy because civilians were getting killed and cops were getting hurt and killed. The courts have ruled that if someone dies in a crash, it's not the fault of the police because we're not the one running. The bad guy's running. It's his fault or her fault, right? Usually a he. So we have protection against, liability there or some immunity from liability there, but it's not right. So now you can only chase for forcible felonies. You did a robbery, you did a rape, you did a murder, he shot at somebody, he shot at a cop or whatever. Okay, then it's on. But back then, no. So we had a lot of crashes. So the bad guy crashes. And if it's a hardcore bad guy, not just somebody that got scared for a second, beans, I got to tell you, they're like cockroaches. They survive the crash and they get out and they run. Okay, so now we got to set up a perimeter. If the helicopter wasn't already involved in the chase, it is now. Call the dogs out, have the dogs search for them if we didn't get them right away. And how do I put this? As I wrote in the book, when we catch you back then, you're going to pay a toll because the courts aren't going to do shit to you. So we're going to make sure you pay that toll. And if you're resisting arrest, you're going to get your ass kicked. Okay? You're going to go to the hospital before you go to jail. And that's the way it was. No one ever said anything about it. The state attorney's office, never said anything about it. It was the wild, wild west. No question about it. But it was a blast. I got to tell you, the young officers today don't get to do what we did back then.
Well, no, that's interesting. So, we've had Vic Ferraro on. You've guested on his podcast. We've had a number of officers on. And there are a lot more restrictions placed on the guys doing it nowadays. So one of the things we talked about just before we started was the use of force. So it was a little bit different back then, as you just illustrated there a little bit with that story. Tell us a little bit about the use of force then.
All right. So this is what I want folks to understand about use of force. And this is a question I ask everybody that's not in law enforcement. When you see a use of force incident on television. Police getting into a physical struggle of some kind with a subject. This is my question to you, Beans. Does it look bad?
It looks, yeah, it does.
Okay.
Yeah, it can do.
That's the answer I'm looking for.
Yeah.
It does look bad.
Yeah.
Force never looks good, right? We're not talking about, a quick rap, boom, 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 handcuffed, that's nothing. We're talking about an all-out fight with a bad guy, as I call him in the book and in general, asshole bad guy. It never looks pretty. So what the public sees, oh my God, the police are beating up on that man. What are they doing? Okay. What led to that is the question you need to ask yourself. Okay. How did we get to that point? When an officer tells you you're under arrest, it's the end of the discussion. You don't have a right to resist. You comply, we handcuff you, we take you to jail, and then you have your day in court, if it makes it that far. Because the state attorney, like in Florida, or district attorney in many other states, and let me ask you, what would the equivalent be called in England? The prosecutors.
I mean, I'm not entirely sure. Basically, it's I can't remember the name for it now, but I think it's a Crown Prosecution Service, the CPS.
Okay. So they're going to get the officer's case, just like here, and review it before they file charges. It is because you've been arrested doesn't mean that you're going to go to court and get convicted. That's down the road someplace, right? So the case is going to be reviewed, and if they don't feel that they can win the case, or they're going to give the guy a break, drop the charges, depending on the severity of the charge, it may get dismissed altogether and never sees the inside of a courtroom. Okay, he got arrested, he had his due process, it's dismissed, gone. Or you go to court and you have your due process. You plead not guilty, you plead no contest, you plead guilty, you go to trial, you're found guilty, not guilty. That's the process. So on the street is not the place to litigate this. So I'm going to use you as an example. We come to your house. You're involved in a domestic with your wife. Now, most of the time, it's the husband or boyfriend hitting the wife or girlfriend.
Yeah.
We determine domestic violence, domestic battery. You're under arrest. Turn around, put your hands behind your back. Fuck you. I'm not going to jail. Okay. All right. Yes, you are. And we're not going to debate this. All right. Turn around, put your hands behind your back. No. Now you've got to grab, right? And it's on. And it's a full-blown fight. And those are the things on the street that people end up seeing.
Yeah.
How did you get there, right? The best example is Rodney King. And I bet a lot of your listeners don't know this. I wrote about this in the book.
Okay.
What you saw at the end with the LAPD, where they were hitting him with the batons.
Yeah.
What you didn't see, the NBC didn't want you to see, was him beating the crap out of the state trooper on the hood of her own patrol car. That led to the chase, that led to the beating.
Yeah.
Right? NBC cut that because they wanted to sensationalize what the LAPD was doing.
Yeah.
Now, I have my own opinion on the Rodney King case. It was 5 or 6 officers standing around hitting him with batons. The way we do things in Florida, especially South Florida, we see that he doesn't have a weapon. It's rugby. He's got the ball, and we're just going to gang tackle him.
Yeah.
Okay? And you're not going to win that. There's no way you're going to win a fight with 5 or 6 cops. It's not going to happen. So we would just gang tackle. We would not stand there with the batons and hit the guy. And especially when he went down on his knee. When he was standing up and he's still resisting, I get that. But they could have just tackled this guy. And there was, what a lot of people didn't see, there was a huge circle of cops that ended up at the end of the chase, standing there. You guys couldn't go grab this guy? pounce on him, get him into custody, fire rescue, hospital, jail. What everybody saw on TV, it didn't look good, but they followed state law and department procedure, and they were acquitted in state court. They were charged. What the federal government did, because it looked really bad and because he was a black man, they went after him federally for civil rights violations, and that's where they were convicted. 56 hits, he got paid $56 million, but it never should have gotten to that.
No.
So that's my point.
Yeah.
When you see a use of force incident, you have to peel back the layers and see how we got there before you render judgment.
Yeah.
I mean, 99% of the time, it's all gonna be legit.
I mean, this is it. You know, if it looks bad, and you know this guy's done something to piss these people off in the first place, you know he ain't a good guy because he's being tackled by the police. You know, those mistakes don't often get made. You know, so
Right.
we know this. But you hit on a good point there. How frustrating is it trying to do the job when you've got, and let's face it, the British media is no different from the US media. I can promise you that. It's sensationalized. It's nonsense. No, it's not news that's reported anymore. It's opinions. How
Right.
difficult is it to do the job like that?
When you're young and stupid and don't know any better, it feels personal. You get into a fight with a guy. It's battery on a police officer, battery on a law enforcement officer, right? Maybe you got a black eye, you got scraped up, bloodied, or whatever, and that's happened to me umpteen times. I've been hurt many times on the job. You charge him with battery on a law enforcement officer, then the state attorney's office, especially at that time, and our state attorney in Dade County was Janet Reno. When I say she's to the left, her car don't make right turns, okay? And she indicted an officer at the drop of a hat, but her office would not charge many subjects with battery and a law enforcement officer. You had to be messed up pretty good, serious injuries for them to do that. So much so that our union, the Police Benevolent Association, would have to get involved and contact the state attorney and say, no. This guy hurt one of our guys or two of our guys. You need to charge him with this. It's different now, fortunately. But you have to learn that it's part of the game. It isn't really personal. They don't want to deal with it. They don't want to prosecute it. And most state attorneys and district attorneys, unless they think they have a slam dunk, they're not going forward with the case, especially at the higher crime levels. You know, they're going to make a name for themselves. And this is not, I never speak in 100% terms because I don't believe anything's 100%. Other than the sun's going to rise and set, we're going to pay our taxes, and we're going to die. That's 100%.
Yeah.
So you have to learn at some point as you become more experienced and what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe a little more callous,
Yeah.
right? That it's just part of the game. They're not going to want to prosecute. So then I refer back, especially at that time, to that toll that I told you that the guy is going to pay at the end of the chase, because that's the only justice he's really going to get.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, of course, you know, when you're involved in a use of force, your sergeant has hours and hours of paperwork to do to justify that use of force. And when I became a sergeant, trust me, my son now as a sergeant, he works in a very busy and violent district that we have. He'll call me up. I go, hey, what are you doing? He goes, I'm doing another use of force. I'm doing another crash report. One of my guys crashed the car again, because it happens all the time. The more violent the areas are, the more the officers get involved, right? And you just can't help it. It comes with the territory.
Yeah.
Beans, I'm sure you've heard the saying, swans don't swim in sewers. Okay. It's a saying that I've used for decades. We have to go into the sewer. We're going to get dirty. We're going to get our hands dirty. And most of the public, The majority of the public likes and appreciates law enforcement. It's the vocal minority that talk all the crap and, you know, we're Nazis and Hitler and all that bullshit, right? But the general public does this. This is my honest assessment of this. I want you to take care of the bad guys and keep them away from us and keep us safe, but I really don't want to see how you do it. Right? And then when it's displayed all over the television and it looks really, oh my God, I can't look at why did they do that to him? There's the problem, right? Yeah. The media is going to sensationalize it. Yours, ours, doesn't matter. It's all the same bullshit, right? And I really do think the media is our biggest enemy internally in our country. You may agree with yours.
Yeah.
But when you take this and you put it out there and you edit it only so they can see what you want them to see, and you're twisting the narrative or you're changing the narrative. No. And I know you've heard this saying, and people say it all the time, and I hate when the pundits on TV say this. 99% of all cops are good. How come we never hear 99% of all politicians are good? 99% of all media personalities are good. No, you never hear that about them, right?
There's a good reason.
You only hear it about law enforcement. I'm tired of that. I'm tired of hearing it. Yeah. In every job, every profession, you're going to have a bad apple or two that rears its ugly head once in a while and goes off the rails and does something that's wrong. I get that. It's true. And in law enforcement, with the authority we have to take life, we have the authority to take life. I mean, think about that.
Yeah. You
raise a weapon to me, and depending on the circumstances, how close, you know, you're dead.
Yeah.
Not that I want that to happen.
No.
But for my own survival, our own survival, that has to be the case.
Yeah.
Officer safety comes first before everybody else's.
100%. No, I get that. And it's difficult, you know, and I can't ever put myself in those shoes because certainly the job I do has far less consequences than that. You know what I mean? It's very very different. But yeah, I really appreciate you sort of sharing those thoughts with us, because like you say, it's difficult to keep those things in perspective. And the reason why you don't hear that 99% of politicians are good is because they ain't. It's a much lower percentage, I can promise you.
But everybody says that about us. And okay, so politically speaking, most of law enforcement is conservative. It's about law and order, right? The hard numbers down the line, do things right or whatever. Because liberalism is about feelings. Most of my brothers and sisters on the job, I would say police probably about 90% conservative. And we just can't deal with the rest of it. We don't want to deal with the rest of it, you know. And the idea here that we've now crossed into this threshold in the States of no cash bail, letting them out of jail right away, even if for a heinous crime, you know, we can't deal with that. And then the recidivism on these bad guys, they just go out and they commit more crimes. They end up killing somebody. And then we find out, oh, they were in jail 12 times, you know, like the guy that stabbed this girl on the train in North Carolina. WTF, man. I mean, you know, but unfortunately, you've got to learn to play that game and you've got to distance yourself from that.
Yeah, easier said than done, though. Easier said than done. Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about before we let you go is your podcast, Sergeant Maverick, the podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I listened to episode 1 the other day, and it was fantastic. You know, it was with your colleague that you went through the training forces with, and I loved it. I loved it because I grew up loving Americana, you know, and when I look at the forces over there, and like I say in the military, stuff like that, it resonates with me. So I love listening to things like this, and I know a lot of our listeners do. But tell us a little bit about your podcast, then. And
well, you mentioned your military. Don't sell yourself short. You got the SAS and the Royal Marines, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm a war history buff. So, you know, the RAF during the Battle of Britain. And to me, the man of the 20th century was Churchill,
yeah.
without
Okay,
a doubt,
yeah, yeah,
more so than anybody else. Anyway, you know, so, you know, I'm in retirement now. You know, I go to the gym, I play a lot of tennis, I ride a motorcycle. My wife and I travel and have our activities together, and the kids and the grandkids. So I keep seeing more about this podcast stuff. And my son, with two other guys, one's a cop and one's a nurse, they have their own podcast called Vice City Gamers, like Miami Vice, right?
yeah.
And he's an avid uh, video game player. You know, he loves Master Chief, Halo, you know, and all that stuff. So, you know, I kind of thought about it and I go, you know what? Let me see if I can do something with this and have a different perspective on things. Because my perspective is usually different than a lot of other guys. I like to think a little bit outside the box, you know, not get pigeonholed with something. So I thought about it and I came up with the concept. And of course, based on my name, it had to be, you know, Sergeant Maverick, the podcast. I didn't go anywhere near the name Experience like Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, why?
No, I'm never going to be able to compete with him.
No, we say the same.
Yeah, but I'm very impressed with you guys. 301 podcasts in 81 countries. I'm very impressed.
Thank you.
And let me say this now. I would love to come back on with all you guys at the same time, and that would be great.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, Gaz is very disappointed he couldn't make it tonight.
And I learned doing these as a guest, and I've done quite a few from you guys. So anyway, I said, let me try this. And just like the book, it had to be an unfiltered view of policing. And all the guys that gave me stories for my book, they're going to be the crux of the guests because they did give me stories. But also, and Carlos, the one you saw, we were in the academy together, so it had to start with him. It all started for us in the academy on February 8th, 1983 at 7 a.m. And that's when he and I met, and we've been friends, good friends ever since, even though he worked for a different department. And as you know, most agencies in the U.S. are blue uniforms, navy blue uniforms, right? We wear a brown uniform, a lighter brown shirt and a dark brown pants with a stripe. So from day one, he called us Park Rangers. So now he'll call me up on the phone. Hey, boo boo, it's Yogi, you know. And when I tell my wife Carlos called, I have several friends that are called Carlos. Park Ranger called, you know, and I just say it like that. So I started with him because it was important to me for him to be the first. And the Miami Beach experience is different because everybody that travels to Miami has got to go to South Beach, right?
Yeah.
And that's where the beach is. That's where the hotels and the glamour and the Ritz and all that crap, right? But they deal with celebrities all the time. Where I work, we don't get a lot of celebrities out in the unincorporated areas of Miami-Dade County, which is fine because celebrities are a pain in the ass, right? They're full of themselves. They're entitled. But Carlos, you know, Miami Beach dealt with celebrities all the time. Athletes, because everybody goes to party on South Beach. They end up arresting a lot, you know, because they get stupid and do really stupid things. And then, you know, when we had a great session because the humor between us, he's always busting my balls for something, you know, like if I say, hey, what are you guys doing? I'm taking Rosie's getting her eyes checked. Oh, she's finally going to be able to see what you really look like, you know, stuff like that. And then I went to Tommy, who was a partner of mine, another retired sergeant, who did 6 years with NYPD before coming down to us. So I wanted to highlight his time at NYPD because they do things a lot different than we do. You know, the basic law enforcement stuff's all the same, but procedurally, another world. And then my third episode was with Mario Gutierrez, who was actually almost killed by an illegal that stabbed him 12 times when Mario stopped him from blowing up a gas station. And then his wife, my first family segment, as I call it, was very much part of that podcast because I wanted to get the spouse's emotions about being married to a cop, first of all. And Mario told her during the podcast, and I think you'll enjoy it if you get a chance to see it, because it's intense. And she said, Mario, when we met, said, if you ever get a call from a cop or they show up to the door, just go with them. It means something happened to me.
Wow.
Right? And you'll be told what happened, but you just get in the car and you go. So I wanted to bring that out because there's no other law enforcement podcasts that are doing that.
No.
And it was a very emotional session, and it was very cathartic for everybody involved, Mario and his wife especially, because Mario tells his story at the various academies that we have in Miami-Dade County. They always bring him in to tell this story of perseverance and survival. Never does his wife get to tell her story. So I got her to tell her story of what they would first being married to a cop and then what that day was like. Yeah. And, you know, there were tears in the room. You know, my wife was watching, my son, Carlos and his son were here, my first guest. And everybody got emotional listening to the horrific story that, you know, the incident that Mario had to go through. So I'm going to continue with that theme as well. And I'm going to bring on my children. What's it like being, you know, having a parent as a cop? And then you can say whatever you want, talk shit about dad, you know, whatever you're going to say, right? And then I'm going to have my nieces on because both of my nieces' parents were cops. One's a nurse and one is a cop now. She's a lieutenant with us. The other one's an emergency room nurse. So what's it like having dad and mom as cops? Because let's face it, the upbringing is a little bit different because generally we're a lot stricter. And then I'm going to have firefighter buddies on to talk about the similarities and differences between our jobs and poke some fun at each other because they're always saying, oh, you guys are always eating donuts. Yeah. And you guys are always on your recliner asleep, watching football or something. Right. You know, and another funny one, you know, between police and fire. And I saw this on a podcast once. The cop said to the firefighters, well, you guys are the second responders. Right? Yeah. What? Yeah. We're the first responders because you guys got to wait in the back until we clear it. Right? So, you know, we're going to poke fun at each other. But there's also two other things, two other aspects I'm going to cover. One is financial issues. While during your career, you're going to have a retirement salary, you're going to have investments. How do you manage those investments? What do you do with them? So I'm going to have my financial advisor from Wells Fargo on to talk about how you invest money, because that's the way I do it with Alex, because we're not trained. You and I are not brought up and taught how to deal with money. No. Now, part two to that, I'm going to have my accountant, Tom, on, my CPA, to talk about the tax implications on those investments and in retirement, how that works for us. Because too many guys are making mistakes thinking, and I had this, I didn't know I had to pay taxes on that money when I withdrew it. And they got themselves into trouble. So those are other aspects I'm going to cover. And I hope, you know, younger officers listen to this as, you know, they're going through it. So when they get to retirement, they have their plan. Yeah. And then the other thing, I'm 64. I've had a couple of prostate issues. I had to have a biopsy. And I'm clear, I'm fine. But I had to go through that stuff thinking, oh, you know, maybe I got prostate cancer, which 90% of all men are going to get. Yeah. Right. So the last visit to my urologist over at University of Miami Health, and he's been my urologist for, I don't know, about 12 years. he asked me what I was doing. And I go, well, I started a podcast. And I asked him, I go, look, this is just when Joe Biden's prostate cancer came to light that nobody knew about.
Yeah.
It's in his bones. And my doctor said, yeah, he's had it for a long time. It just doesn't pop up like that. I said, okay, so Doc, I'm doing my podcast. I want to talk about health issues for us that are older. Would you come on and talk about prostate health and urology? He goes, yeah, I'd love to do that, because I want to tell the younger guys, you've got to get checked. You got to go and do the uncomfortable examination. That's the only way your doctor can know if you have a swollen prostate, other than an MRI. And then we know that MRIs are really expensive, and depending on your age, the insurance is not going to cover it. So he's going to come on. We're going to talk about urology issues, so we can guide my brethren as they start getting older. My father had colon cancer. That's how it started. So I've had 6 colonoscopies since my early 40s, and I'm all clear, fine. But because of my family history, I had to get checked, right?
Yeah.
And then my cardiologist, I was with him for my checkup, and he's going to come on to talk about cardiac health, because we have people dropping left and right for no apparent reason, and it's all cardiac related.
Yeah, seen a lot of that.
So, and this is what I'll leave you with that. The calcium score. You've got to know what your calcium score is, because that's going to tell you how occluded you are.
Okay.
You know, not just an EKG or an echocardiogram. You've got to have the test. You got to have the stress test with contrast. You know, all that stuff. And the CT scan, that will tell you what your true cardiac health is like. So Dr. Heller is going to come on to talk about that stuff, because there was a time I decided to get checked because I had colleagues having heart attacks and dropping dead in their 50s. And I just wanted to know what my cardiac health was like. Fortunately, I'm in great shape.
Good
And
to
I
hear.
highly recommend tennis for anybody, because it's a great sport.
It's a difficult sport. It was some of my limited hand-to-eye coordination. I can tell you that much.
Well,
But I got to
play pickleball, you know,
yeah,
because it's very social. You get out there, you sweat, you know, you're always moving and stuff. So play pickleball, you know, but as long as you're doing something.
well, pickleball is just taking off in the UK. I know it's very big in the States. My cousin Bo plays it. Him and his wife both play it a lot. And yeah, it's something. Funny enough, like if you saw me waving earlier, my wife's just off out to play badminton tonight as well. So I'm hoping the kids stay asleep. But yeah, it's honestly, it's a really worthy podcast. You know, the take that you've taken on it is very different to most police officers who do podcasts and what have you. And I think it's fantastic. And I really, really do hope that those people tune in and listen, because there's a lot of benefits. And I know you also look at the likes of mental health as well, that you're a real advocate for that element of it as well.
Yes, and I'm going to have people on that I worked with very closely during my time in crisis intervention team. I also trained a lot of officers in dealing with the mentally ill. And I'm still part of a group now in retirement called Peer Support. And I'm on the board of the Miami-Dade multi-agency peer support team, where, let's say, Beans is an officer for City of Miami. He or his family, together or alone, are struggling with something. You can call us, and we will either get someone on the phone who's trained, who's on the job, that understands, or is of the mental health background training, to help you get through whatever it is. It's kind of like a Alcoholics Anonymous sponsor.
Yeah.
Or come out and see you and spend time with you. And they also respond to catastrophic events, like when we had the Champlain Towers collapse a couple of years ago in Surfside, which was a disaster. 90-something people just at night in their building, and they're gone just like that. But the officers and firefighters needed somebody to talk to because of what they saw. This is just a very small scale of what happened on 9/11 in New York. Yeah. So I'm still involved with that. Mental health is another big thing. All to prevent you from putting a gun in your mouth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
really, really important. And I can't stress that enough. we did an episode, probably I don't know how long it's going back now, maybe more than 12 months, where we had a charity on called Tough to Talk. So it wasn't a police officer based one, but we got myself and Dave, one of the other hosts, who is well enough to hopefully be back on the podcast soon. And we went down to the book launch for the Tough to Talk. And I got to tell you, hearing some of the stories there of people who've dealt with suicide from their spouses, or the guy who wrote the book, put it together, is a guy who attempted it and thankfully wasn't successful. It was difficult. And the hardest story that we had to listen to was a police officer. And he stood up there and he spoke about a young lad who'd taken his life and how he was racing to get there and how he reacted. And this is a guy, I'm 6'5". This guy was 3-4 inches bigger than me and built like a brick shithouse. And he's breaking down as he's telling this story. And it was a very, very emotional experience. So it is a really, really worthy cause. So I wish you all the best with it.
The loss of a colleague, and I have a chapter dedicated to just that, because it's not if, but when. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
And I've had many colleagues get killed on the job over the course of my career. My son, 2 years ago, had one of his in a specialized unit he was in at the time. There was this unit that my son was in and he's trying to go back to is called RID, Robbery Intervention Detail. They go after the worst of the worst bad guys. So if homicide had a bad guy they were looking for, they tell RID, and RID would go down and hunt them down. And unfortunately, one of my son's colleagues, who he trained, my son trained him in RID when he joined, was killed in an incident, and he was very young. And that was my son's first real experience with that. Mine was my first Christmas on the job in 1983. Right off the bat as a rookie officer. One of the guys from my station, not just my department, from my station. And it hits you, and it hits you hard. And you've got to learn to deal with it, because you got to carry on. I love the saying that you Brits have: remain calm and carry on. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
And you have to be that way, because you just can't stop. Take a minute during the funeral or whatever in the aftermath, but then you've got to carry on. You got to get your head back in the game.
Yeah.
Because if you're always going to think about that, if you always think the worst is going to happen, it's going to happen.
Yeah, that's very true.
And it's very hard when you lose a colleague. And my brothers and sisters in the fire service and in the military, they all feel the same way. And it's about the guy next to you, right? It's not just about you. It's about the guys next to you. And when it happens, it's tough. Carlos on the beach, same thing. He had a friend of his killed that was filling in for another guy on this special detail.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's the way it happens. So,
yeah.
But I'm glad to hear that you guys did that, because it's very important. But, mental health is important for all of us, not just police, fire, or military. It's important for everybody.
No, amen. Amen. And listen, when you say about coming back on the podcast, we'll have you back on 100%. I've got a page full of questions here and I've barely got anywhere into them. So we'll definitely do a second episode with you if that's okay. And I know Gaz would love to meet you and have the same conversation as well. Don't get me wrong. He's a lot harder to get a word in edgewise than me, but I'm sure you'll be just fine with him. So
Where are you located?
We're in Cheshire. So we're in the northwest of England. So we're about 60 kilometers south of Manchester is probably the best way to put it.
When I looked you up, the other thing I wanted to tell you is that when we established the first Metro Dade police soccer team, the guy that approached us is a huge Arsenal fan. So we became the Metro Dade Gunners.
Oh, yes.
And we had a beautiful logo for our uniform. It was great.
Oh, love it. Love it. Love it. Yeah, I'm a big Arsenal fan. Now, the Arsenal obviously is based in London, so most people around here aren't Arsenal fans, but I just grew up loving them. I grew up loving them. And, my love for the Arsenal comes back to, when we beat Liverpool to secure the title all those years ago when we beat them 2-0 at their place, the unthinkable happened. And I just fell in love with the sport then. I wasn't a big football fan before then, funnily enough. and I just fell in love with them. I've been an Arsenal fan ever since. So I'm a little bit transplanted in terms of being in the northwest, and my team's in the south of England.
Right.
But I've got the opportunity to go see them a few times, and actually, funnily enough, they were just up here last night. One of the local clubs to us is a club called Port Vale. It's not on a port. I don't even know why they're called that, but it's in Stoke-on-Trent, not far from us. And yeah, Arsenal were there. They won 2-0 there, and I couldn't get to go see him because trying to get tickets now is nigh on impossible. I take my daughter to watch Stoke City instead most of the time because it's a lot easier to get tickets to. But yeah, I love the Arsenal.
Same here in Miami. Once Messi came to Inter Miami, the ticket prices shot through the roof. Now, full disclosure, my parents were from Argentina. So I am a huge Messi fan going back, and winning the World Cup last time was incredible, for him, as good as he's been, but your former guy brought soccer to Miami, Beckham.
That's it. Yeah.
And it's great. And the guy is the stadium is going up like gangbusters. I have a picture of it. It is going up because they want to be ready for the 26th season. And I'm so glad that he was able to pull this off. He got jerked around so much by the county and by the city. Where we're going to put the stadium. But you know what? A phenomenal player he was. The saying, bend it like Beckham, no question about it. He was great. But now he's ours. I get to say, he belongs to Miami.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%. We recognize that. Funnily enough, my brother-in-law was a coach at Man United. And he was there at the time that Beckham was. I didn't coach Beckham. He wasn't the first team coach, but yeah, he's always got great things to say about Beckham. So I know he's loving watching what he's doing out there. So yeah, we need to wrap things up. We normally wrap things up around about the hour mark. We've gone on to the 90-minute mark, and I have no issue with that. And I'm sure we'll hit that target next time you're on as well. But for our listeners, did you want to tell them where you can pick up your book and where you can find your podcast?
So you can go to my website, sergeantmaverick.com. That's sgtmaverick.com. I have the links there for the book. You can get it on Amazon straight away. Same thing. You get everything on Amazon, right? I mean, and you can see the podcast. The podcast links for YouTube are there for my first few episodes. We'll be doing another one probably the first week in November because we're going on a trip to North Carolina for a Gonzalez sibling reunion with my sister who lives up there with her husband, and my brother and his girlfriend are flying up with us. So we'll be back on with episode 4. I mean, nothing like you guys. I'm really impressed, but maybe one day I'll get there.
You will.
And you can check out my website, my history, the books there, and also my opinion editorials that I write for ThinkAmerican.news. For my agent. Jesse's my agent, and I've been writing now for her website, mostly law enforcement related articles, given my slant on things. I have a couple in there politically motivated because I couldn't stand by and watch some of this stuff, and I just my latest one is on celebrities threatening to leave the U.S. So basically, I wrote an article that was very sarcastic. Sarcasm is a superpower for law enforcement. I'm sure you've come to see that.
Yeah.
And basically, my article said, "Don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out."
That's
So you've got Ellen now, and Ireland has Rosie.
Yeah.
Good riddance.
Yeah, I'm sure they're welcome to them. Yeah, honestly, thank you very much for sparing, an hour and a half of your time.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been my pleasure, my honor.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I'll drop you an email and we'll arrange to get the second episode organized. It'll probably be to 2026 now, I think, because we're booked up pretty much to the end of the year. But yeah, we'll definitely get something in for the.
I'm retired. I got plenty of time.
I've got a few years to. Well, you wouldn't know with the grey whiskers, but yeah, I've got a few years till I can retire. But I am looking forward to it. But yeah, absolutely, we'll get something sorted for next year, early part of next year, January next year, definitely. Because I'd love to hear some more.
I look forward to it.
And like I say, I've got a page with the questions that I didn't get through, so I'd like to use some of those.
And I'm going to have some for you too.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, feel free. Ask us anything you like. Guys, by the way, if you weren't aware, is an Everton fan, so you know, and a Chicago Bears fan, so you can give him all the stick you like.
So I get to tell him that in 1985, when they were undefeated, Marino lit them up and beat them to make them go 15-1, right?
Yeah, you can talk about that all you like, and I'll enjoy listening to it as well.
Monday night game, I watched it live.
Did you really? Fabulous. Well, that was funny enough. That was the year that we both Gaz and I started watching American football. Now I follow the Steelers because you know, growing up, I was led to believe my granddad was from Pittsburgh. It was Pittsburgh County, Oklahoma. You know, so it was half right. But yeah, that's the reason why I follow the Steelers. But no, thank you very much.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
no, and we will touch base. We'll get you back on very soon. But as for us, we will be back next week when we'll be talking about something not too different, actually, because we have an officer on from New York City. So take care and goodbye.
Friends around the mic, kicking back, alright. Day turns into night, podcast in the spotlight.